Sky trains darted across the English Channel, carrying thousands of brave paratroopers about to face the darkest chapter of their lives. The warplanes carried a group of paratroopers unlike any other, with mohawk haircuts and tribal face paint. The outfit, led by the rebellious and untamed Jake McNasty McNeese, laughed and joked even as their aircraft was engulfed by fierce German flak fire. As the Sky train lost altitude, McNeese orders his men to prepare for the jump.
Troops, this is a fantastic video we're going to be reacting to today. The secret soldiers in the United States was afraid to send to war. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. My name's Ryan. I don't know if I've even said that already, but I'm a former commando. Troops, my brain is fried. And yeah, we're going to be reacting to this, all right? I'm looking forward to it. It's a fantastic video. Original link is in the description. Let's just get after it.
It was the night before one of the most transcendental military invasions in human history, and hundreds of C-47 Sky trains darted across the English Channel, carrying thousands of...
Look at that as a sight. That is insane.
...brave paratroopers about to face the darkest chapter of their lives. The warplanes carried a group of paratroopers unlike any other.
He's got face paint on to make themselves look more aggressive. I mean, that's insane.
With mohawk haircuts and tribal face paint. The outfit, led by the rebellious and untamed Jake McNasty McNeese.
I mean, Jake McNasty McNeese, if you knew that that was a guy leading these people with mohawks and tribal face paint, you'd get the hell out of there before starting, wouldn't you?
Laughed and joked, even as their aircraft was engulfed by fierce German flak fire. As the Sky train lost altitude, McNeese orders his men to prepare for the jump. The lights inside the cabin then turned red, and the men scrambled to their feet amid fire and thunder. As McNeese and his comrade Willie made it to the door, flak burst through the warplane's belly, hitting Willie's backpack and unraveling his parachute inside the plane. Now significantly damaged, the C-37 continued to lose altitude as Willie desperately tried to gather his parachute and move away from the door.
I mean, that must have been carnage. To be amongst that in the sky would have been absolute mayhem.
So other paratroopers could jump. McNeese then jumped into the flak-lit skies over France, and the Sky train exploded in midair only a few seconds later.
Bearing in mind, these guys are getting shot at as well as they're descending to the ground, like getting blown out of the sky quite literally.
There was no time to mourn, as McNeese and the rest of the notorious Filthy 13 outfit were now behind enemy lines in Normandy, and they had a crucial mission to finish.
This is going to be brilliant, man. Dark Ducks has got some of the best stuff on YouTube.
Hellraiser.
Fact.
Jake McNeese grew up during the depths of the Great Depression and had to work to support his family from the age of 10. Hunting and fishing to feed his kin gave the young man a formidable physical condition that helped him stand out when he finally went back to school. In high school, McNeese joined the football team and found work as a fireman. He soon earned a reputation for being a defiant teen who would do anything to win. One of his teachers would remember him, quote, "He was not afraid of the devil and was always doing the unconventional thing." Soon after McNeese's graduation, the U.S. entered World War II. Then, after a nasty brawl in his hometown in Oklahoma, where he beat a man to a pulp, he decided to enlist to get the police off his back. McNeese did not want to join the infantry, and instead decided to join the emerging U.S. paratrooper experiment.
Which is the infantry, believe it or not. So I know a lot of people might think, oh, they're not infanteers, they're not ground soldiers, they're airborne soldiers. Listen, they're infanteers who literally jump from a plane. That's the difference. It's like Marines. You know, we don't like to class ourselves as infantry, we class ourselves as Marines, but effectively we are amphibious infanteers. That's what we do.
He figured he would be dropped deep inside enemy lines and obey no one while engaging German soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. He would later say, quote, "If a man wanted to kill me, I wanted to look him in the eye." And thus, the mischievous Jake McNeese became the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment's problem.
Bad lads make good soldiers.
A wild bunch. Including paratrooper units in the U.S. military was a risky and ambitious experiment, as the American authorities knew many troopers would not make it to the ground alive. The recruiter told McNeese as such when he asked to join, going as far as letting him know that only 10 out of 1,000 would-be paratroopers made it past the excruciating physical training. Still, McNeice excelled during training and quickly became the best recruit in his unit.
Wow.
But he was as reckless as he was fit, and soon became known around the camp for his defiant antics. Afraid that he would influence other recruits, McNeice was put into a particular troublemaker unit, where 5 would-be paratroopers were assigned to a single tent. The accommodations were derelict, with the tents having no flooring besides the muddy dirt of the Georgian countryside. But McNeice and his men didn't care about appearances, opting to save water for cooking instead of cleaning themselves, and soon earning the nickname of the Dirty Five. McNeice and the Dirty Five
This is such a good story, Troops.
continued to gain a reputation as rebels, missing roll calls, getting drunk, and participating in bar brawls regularly. One night, after causing a significant fight inside a bar, 2 military police officers intervened. When the MPs started to beat one of McNeice's friends into submission, he assaulted them, disarmed them, and fired in every direction to empty the guns, leaving the officers injured and perplexed.
Wow. This guy, if he was about now, would definitely be in Colchester prison.
McNeice was severely punished and was the only recruit not to be promoted during his training. Still, the authorities knew he was the best, and they needed him. When someone suggested to McNeice's commander that they should discharge him, he responded, quote, "McNeice isn't hurting anything. There will be a time when you'll be awful glad to have McNeice around."
Yeah. 100%.
Mohawks and war paint.
This is so exciting, man. I love this.
By the time they made it to England, the Dirty Five had grown into the Filthy 13. The group then continued rehearsing jumps in preparation for the Normandy landings. Even out of combat, McNeice had lost several friends to parachute malfunctions. Still, the Filthy 13 relished in the danger and risk that came with the job, and when they were not jumping out of a plane, they were causing mayhem in camp as their way to let off steam. During an advanced demolition training session a few days before D-Day, McNeice set up a charge in a nearby tree that was triggered when a soldier on patrol walked by, sending the man into a panic. The top brass arrested the entire group, but they were released to take part in the Normandy operations. The 13 men had now formed a unique and feared unit. Before taking off for Normandy, the men saw McNeice wearing face paint and a mohawk haircut. He told them he was part Indian, and it was part of his cultural and spiritual heritage.
He's just kicked the beauty. That's a lie, isn't it? Just to get, like... These are just functional psychopaths. That's what they are.
The paint, he said, would be an excellent camouflage once they were behind enemy lines. In truth, only part of the story was genuine. Jake's mother was half Choctaw, but everything else was made up. Encouraged by McNeice, the men cut their hair and painted their faces. They then boarded the warplane, sporting a daunting look that would be spread around the world as the press released images of the peculiar warriors about to be thrown into Nazi-occupied France. Everyone wanted to know what the Filthy 13 were really capable of.
Absolute destruction.
Normandy Jump.
This is crazy.
Before deploying, McNeice's mission was shifted. The task he'd been assigned was changed into a much more vital role. He and his men had to blow up the bridges below the Douve Canal and then capture and hold the main bridge. The crucial mission required additional support, and McNeice asked for 6 more paratroopers, knowing that he would lose at least half his men during the jump. The unit took off from England at 11 p.m. on June 5th, 1944, along with nearly 1,000 other C-47s.
It's crazy. Crazy numbers, man.
Loaded with thousands of paratroopers. They enjoyed a clear and bright night for about 20 minutes before seeing the first flak set off around them. The following minutes were hectic and savage for the
Must have been absolutely terrifying, man.
young paratroopers. Their aircraft was heavily engaged and losing altitude, forcing them to jump prematurely. McNeice barely escaped from the plane before it exploded, and many of his friends lost their lives, including Willie, whose parachute had been unfurled by enemy fire. The entire paratrooper operation was plagued with tragedy, and half the troopers that took off from Britain would never return.
That's crazy.
It was no different for the Filthy 13, and McNeice lost over half of his men during the jump and the minutes after that. Still, 3 of the surviving men managed to reunite on the war-torn fields of Normandy, and they were joined by 12 other U.S. paratroopers who had been separated from their units. From the moment they landed, they were targeted by German soldiers, and they had to react quickly and defend themselves. The Americans identified themselves by the sound of their rifles in contrast to German fire. As such, they were able to regroup and repel the Germans.
That in itself as a job is got to be up there with the hardest of all jobs. Jumping in Normandy at the time was a suicide mission. Just crazy respect for these guys.
Holding the bridge. Once they were on their feet again, McNeice and his men managed to reach the main Douve Canal, blow up some smaller bridges, and move to the main bridge. The objective was to capture and hold it so it could be used by American troops. If they could not keep the crossing, they had orders to blow it up so the Germans could not use it to reinforce the beachheads. Against all odds, the Filthy 13 dug in on one side of the bridge and maintained control, preventing the Germans from crossing. Then, after 3 days of holding the bridge, under constant German fire from the other side of the canal, the U.S. authorities decided that McNeice's unit had been wiped out and sent a squadron of P-51 Mustangs to blow out the bridge.
Wow.
The Mustangs swept in and destroyed the bridge, while also striking the German and U.S. positions on each side of the canal. McNeice and his men were well dug in and survived the strike, after which they continued to defend their positions.
So they continued to defend despite being attacked by their own side unknowingly. That's unbelievable.
2 days passed, and the Germans were significantly pushed back from the beachheads. A large group of Germans was then trapped in a flooded area near where McNeice and his men were positioned. There were over 700 enemy soldiers, and McNeice had managed to assemble a team of 40. Fortunately, the German commanders sent a messenger asking McNeice to surrender, thus avoiding a complete wipeout. However, McNeice responded by saying they would never yield, but were more than welcome to submit to them. The German officer was livid and felt insulted, so he decided to attack. McNeice then ordered his men to hold their fire until most Germans left their trenches. By now, Jake had machine guns, mortars, and all the equipment he needed for a formidable defense. Still, when the Germans were midway in their charge towards McNeice, he ordered his men to open fire. The onslaught was devastating for the Germans, and McNeice claims to have taken the lives of nearly 700 enemy soldiers.
What? 700? I thought he was going to say like a section of men of like 5 or 10, not 700. Blowing me away, this.
Continued mayhem. The Filthy 13 were made up of over 30 different men throughout the war, and continued to wreak havoc on the Germans while enjoying every minute of it. Despite grave injuries and incredibly antagonizing odds, McNeice survived and accomplished numerous missions. He credits his rebellious attitude and daredevil approach to his survival. Paratroopers were already some of the best, most aggressive U.S. soldiers in the war.
US and the UK alike, British paratroopers are known for being extremely aggressive and formidable fighting machines.
And McNeice took that perception and scaled it up to become a genuinely fearsome threat to the
Commando Dagger we have there. See that?
Axis powers.
Fairbairn and Sykes, Commando Dagger.
McNeice's father would later comment about his son's war accomplishments, quote, "I think he was trying to build upon the idea that if they're scared of us as crazy paratroopers, well, this just makes us look crazier." McNeice became one of the only paratroopers to make 4 wartime jumps and live to tell the tale.
Wow.
After Normandy, he jumped as part of Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. Then he was dropped in Germany before the Battle of the Bulge for reconnaissance duty. As the war waned, he volunteered for Pathfinder training, anticipating he would sit out the rest of the war in a training camp in England. To his surprise, his unit was called for one last jump into Bastogne to guide and resupply drops. He was eventually awarded the French Legion of Honor Chevalier class for his brave actions in France in 2012.
Hang on, in 2012? So he was awarded it in 2012. That's what's... Yeah, he's going to mean that.
At the end of the day, the officers that put up with McNeice's antics during training were proven correct. The war needed men like him.
I agree, and this is the thing with society at this moment in time. These types of individuals absolutely shine in the most despicable, horrendous conditions, okay? When I was in the military, I came across and met loads of individuals who, you know, tick these boxes here. And it's like society doesn't have a place for them unless it's at war. So we need to be careful. We still need masculine men capable of absolute destruction, in my personal opinion.
the Filthy 13 became an iconic and legendary unit, not only for its over-the-top looks, but also for its incredible combat deeds. Jake McNeice, with the help of historian Kaleo Griffith, would eventually document all of
there he is.
his wartime adventures in the book The Filthy 13, From the Dust Bowl to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, which only added more fuel to the legend.
I want to read that book. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please smash the like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Join the Patreon, join the YouTube channel. Just press the join button, troops. It really does help me out. And I'll see you in the comments.